are going to be working on checkpoint 5 today. Again, this is the last checkpoint that you're going to have to do for this class. It's the last assignment that we're going to be doing for this class, and this is the last traditional lesson that we're going to be doing. The next 2 weeks, next week, I will be giving you your prompt for your essay, and then I will be here on this call to answer questions and help people with their essays. But that's it. We don't have to. We're not going to be doing full lessons, okay? We're just going to be doing me being here to help you answer questions. You can sit on the call and do your work, and I'll be here to answer questions and look at stuff, okay? So this is the last traditional lesson that we're going to be having in this class, all right? So this is exciting stuff. We're moving rapidly to the end. All right, so if you log on to Summit, you should see, like we have in Kendra's account here, the week view. Then you want to go over here to the year view, over here again on the left side. Scroll down to where it says Founding of America DBQ. That's where we want to be, Founding of America DBQ. Click on Founding of America DBQ. See, I've got to check out Kendra's 3rd and 4th checkpoints. And then Women and African Americans during the Revolutionary Era. That is what we're going to be working on right now. We're going to be working on checkpoint 5, okay? And what we want to do is we want to click on African Americans during the American Revolution document set. African Americans during the American Revolution document set. That is where you want to be, all right? All right, that is where you want to be. You want to be under where it says African Americans during the American Revolution document set, okay? Has everybody been able to go through? Again, I'll show you the steps. You start the week view after you log on. You go to the year view. You click on the year view. You scroll down to where it says American History, Founding of America DBQ. You click on the Founding of America DBQ, and boom, boom shakalaka, it's here. All right, and we want checkpoint 5, and then you want to click African Americans during the American Revolution document set. African Americans during the Revolution document set. All right, and it'll bring you to a page that looks like this. It will say on the top, Resource African Americans during the American Revolution document set. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is we're going to be reading these 4 documents today. And we are going to be answering the historical question, how were African Americans affected by the American Revolution? And what we want to do is we want to be highlighting the most important quotes and parts of each one of these documents that show us how African Americans, how people of African descent, how Black Americans were affected by the American Revolution. Okay? And we have 4 documents. All right? All right. We have a narrative from a slave Black soldier in the American Army. We have Boston King, who was a fugitive slave in the British Army. Okay. We have the Declaration of the Virginia Colony regarding slavery. And we have Phyllis Wheatley's poem on tyranny and slavery. All right. Phyllis Wheatley's cool, very cool lady. She was a big poet in this era and one of the first published African Americans. All right. She's super cool. All right. So we have these 4 documents pertaining to African Americans and how they were impacted by slavery. And we're going to go through each document. I'm going to read them to you. And we're going to, as a class, come up with the most important parts that we want to highlight. All right. We want to highlight. All right. Does that make sense? Does everybody understand what's going on right now?
Yeah, Roger says I'm going to be able to highlight too.
You should be able to highlight. You should be able to highlight. Is it not letting you highlight?
I didn't try yet. I just wanted to make sure.
Let me open up as you. It should let you highlight it. Is it not? Okay. Okay. Folks, is it not giving you the option to highlight or not highlight? Can people actually talk in the chat?
Yeah, it's letting me.
It's letting you highlight? Yes, you can? Cool, cool, cool. Awesome. All right, cool. All right. So what I want you... Okay, so does everybody understand what we are doing today with this? Okay? Everybody understand what we're doing? Can I get some noise in the chat? All right. about whether people understand. And thank you to Mai for saying that, yes, you can highlight. Okay. Cool. Is everybody ready to go and get started with this? Is everybody good?
I'm ready.
All right, Kendra's ready. Shair, you ready? Tamai, Nasir, Nazir, you good? Jenkins and Wilkerson, are folks ready?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so I will start with this document A, which is a narrative from an enslaved black soldier in the American Army. All right. So here's what he had to say about his experience being an enslaved person who was serving in the American. That's the U.S., that's the Revolutionary Army. He said, when this lady died, I descended like real estate. This lady died, I descended like real estate in fee simple to her son, Benjamin Stiles, Esquire. About 4 years after his death, her two sons, Benjamin and David, were drafted to fight in the Revolution. I also entered the banners of freedom. Alas, a poor African slave to liberate freemen, my tyrants. I had contemplated going to Barbados to avenge myself and my country. I went into Captain Samuel Granger's company. From hence, I was drafted into Samuel Barker's company of light infantry. I suddenly discovered a man riding up to me, not more than 8 rods distant, on full speed, with a pistol in his hand, and ordered me to lay down my arms, weapons. He said I must surrender to him and demanded me in the name of the King, His Majesty of Great Britain. I then plainly told him that neither him nor His Majesty of Great Britain, then I plainly told him that neither him nor His Majesty, His King's Majesty, there we go, would get my arms unless he took them by force. He merely cocked his pistol and fired. I fell flat upon the ground in order to dodge his ball. Finally, I was in the battles at Cambridge, White Plains, Monmouth, Princeton, Newark, Frogs Point, Horse Neck, where I had a ball pass through my knapsack. All which battles the reader can obtain a more perfect account in his history than I can give. At last, we returned to West Point and were discharged in 1783 as the war was over. Thus, I, a slave for 5 years, fighting for liberty. After we were disbanded, I returned to my old master at Woodbury, Connecticut, with whom I lived for 1 year. My services in the American War having emancipated me from further slavery and from being bartered or sold. My master consented that I might go where I pleased and seek my fortune. Hearing flattering accounts of the new state of Vermont, I left Woodbury and traveled as far as the town of Lenox in Massachusetts, from where for the first time I made a bargain as a free man for labor. I lent, which means he hired himself, to Mr. Isha Orsborn for 1 month at the price of $5. When I had fulfilled his contract, I traveled to the town of Portney in Vermont. There again, I lent myself to a Mr. Abel Parker for the sum of 13 pounds, 10 shillings for 6 months. Here I enjoyed the pleasures of a freeman. My food was sweet, my labor pleasure, and one bright gleam of life seemed to shine upon me. Okay. Whew. There's a lot going on here, and I will read it again one more time. I just got to see who is this person who is calling me. Okay. Oh, and someone's. All right, give me 1 second, folks. Give me 1 second.
Roger, I can't hear you.
All right. Sorry about that, everybody. All right. So I'm going to read that one more time. All right. And one more time. All right. So where is it here? Okay. I'm going to read it one more time. All right. So when this lady died, I descended like real estate in fee simple to her son, Benjamin Stiles, Esquire. About 4 years after her death, her two sons, Benjamin and David, were drafted to fight in the Revolution. I also entered the banners of freedom. Alas, poor African slave. To liberate freemen, my tyrants, I had contemplated going to Barbados to avenge myself and my country. I went into Captain Samuel Granger's company. From hence, I was drafted into Captain Samuel Barker's company of light infantry. I suddenly discovered a man riding up to me, not more than 8 rods distant, on full speed with a pistol in his hand, and ordered me to lay down my arms, weapons. He said I must surrender to him, who demanded me in the name of the king, his majesty of Great Britain. I then plainly told him that neither him nor his king's majesty would get my arms unless they took it by force. He immediately cocked his pistol and fired. I fell flat upon the ground in order to dodge his ball. Finally, I was in the battles at Cambridge, White Plains, Monmouth, Princeton, Newark, Frogs Point, Horseneck, where I had a ball pass through my knapsack. All which battles the reader can obtain a more perfect account in the history than I can give. At last, we returned to West Point and were discharged, 1783, as the war was over. Thus was I a slave for 5 years fighting for liberty. After we were disbanded, I returned to my old master at Woodbury, Connecticut, with whom I lived for 1 year. My services in the American War having emancipated me from further slavery and from being bartered or sold. My master consented that I might go where I pleased and seek my fortune. Hearing flattering accounts of the new state of Vermont, I left Woodbury and traveled as far as the town of Lenox in Massachusetts, where for the first time I made a bargain as a free man for labor. I lent, which means he hired himself, to Mr. Isha Orsborn for 1 month at the price of $5. When I had fulfilled this contract, I traveled to the town of Pulteney in Vermont. There again, I lent myself to a Mr. Abel Parker for the sum of £13, 10 shillings for 6 months. Here I enjoyed the pleasures of a free man. My food was sweet, my labor pleasure, and one bright gleam of life seemed to shine upon me. Okay, so what's going on with this guy's story? What's going on with this guy's story? Oh, hi, hey, Alston. Hi, Manaya. How are you?
I'm good.
Cool. Do you see where we are and what we're doing? Or do you need me to help you find it?
No, I got it.
Okay, cool. So what is going on with this this account that he's describing? So what is this guy's story?
Wait, quick question. This
Yep.
first document is all y'all have done so far?
Yeah, we are just getting started. I actually just had to stop for a minute to help a student who was like very messed up with something with their computer. Okay. All right. Yes, Denim, I can mark you here. Oh, I didn't even see you either. Yes. I actually already marked you, Denim, because you had messaged me earlier. Okay, and you would get credit for being here, okay? Even if you had issues. But you got the I'm glad to see you got the account, okay? All right. So, I need people to tell me what is going on with this guy's story. It's a cool story. What's going on with him? What did he do? What did he do? Who was he?
He was a slave that fought in a war that earned his freedom.
Correct. He earned his freedom, right? And what do you think to this guy is the part of the story that he's most excited about? Like, where do you really feel his emotions come out? Is it the beginning where he's describing the war, or is it towards the end?
I said like the middle.
The middle? Where he's talking about he only getting shot and stuff?
When he almost got shot and he had to like survive that. And then after that, he did like his liberty and his freedom and stuff.
Cool. All right. Why do you think he keeps describing the amount of money that he earns? Why do you think he would do that?
Because money is valuable.
Money is valuable, but what was he not before?
He was a slave. He didn't have money. Like,
yeah, and if you didn't have any money, you couldn't earn any money. You're going to count every penny, right? Yep. All right. So where should we start highlighting, folks? Where should we start highlighting?
I started highlighting it. What was the first thing I highlighted?
The first, what do people want to highlight? So where do people want to start highlighting? So what is the most important part? Come on. This is requiring a lot of stuff from y'all today. Come on. Mr. Rogers can't carry you. We're at the last one of these. Come on. What are we going to highlight?
When they was drafted into the revolution.
Into the revolution? Cool. So that's what she's the first thing that we think we should highlight. So that's what? This part right here. All right. All right. So this part right here, the 4 years after this lady's death, he was drafted. All right. With the guys who owned him. Is that where we want to start with highlighting?
I guess I didn't even highlight that though.
Okay, well, what did you highlight, Shayur? Does anybody else want to tell us in the chat what they highlighted? You can just paste what you highlighted in the chat.
Then the next part I highlighted was the gun part.
Is the what?
The gun part.
The gun part. Oh, yeah, where he almost gets shot. That's a really good part. Okay, to highlight. Awesome. Anybody else have anything besides Shayur want to offer? Come on, folks. Let's do this. You're capable of doing this. Come on. Do you need me to read it again?
Well, the next thing I highlighted was in the next paragraph at the last sentence.
Where he said, oh, you mean the last paragraph of the last sentence?
No.
Here I enjoyed the pleasures of a free man?
No, the next paragraph. I'm going in order.
Oh, the next part. So this one?
Let me see.
Thus, where I was a slave for 5 years fighting for liberty? That's a great quote. That's a fantastic quote, right? It shows the contradiction of his position, right? Where he was fighting for other people's freedom. You know, that's where he says, you know, up here he says, poor African slave to liberate freemen, my tyrants, right? Where he's fighting to free the people who were holding him in slavery, right? And then he says down here, thus I was a slave for 5 years fighting for liberty. Okay? All right. Anything else? So can someone besides Shayur offer us another thing that they're going to highlight? Or they want to highlight? Nothing? So we're saying, I returned to my old master at Woodbury, with whom I lived for 1 year, sir. Yep. Oh, see, look at Tamai. There she is. All right. I returned to my old master, Woodbury, Connecticut, with whom I lived for 1 year. My services in the American War having emancipated me from further slavery and being bartered or sold. Awesome. That's a good one, too, because it shows, again, he was freed by his service in the war. Excellent. Good job, Nasir. All right. Good job, Wilk. All right. Tamai, you got anything for us? Since you're sitting there being snarky in the chat? Nope. Oh, come on, Tamai. All right. Anybody else? Manaya, Jenkins, Kendra, Alston, Huff. Folks got anything for us? Speller?
Which question are we missing again?
We're talking about what things we want to highlight. What things do we think are the most important? What do we want to annotate here? All right. Well, I'm going to... Oh, go ahead, Kendra.
That was me.
That was you?
It's good. I didn't the last sentence of the document.
And the last part I think people should really highlight is this last sentence of it. All right. Here I enjoyed the pleasures of a free man. My food was sweet, my labor pleasure, and one bright gleam of life seemed to shine upon me, right? Where suddenly he's saying, like, look, everything tastes better. It feels good to work. I've got this, like, life seems really good thanks to being a free person. Thanks to being a free person. Thanks to being a free person. Okay. All right. Have folks highlighted at least 3 things from this section, from this piece? have folks highlighted anything? Are we ready to move on to document B? Are we ready to move on to document B? Are we ready to move on to document B?
So, Rogers, I was highlighting everything y'all was highlighting, right?
Yep. Or anything else that you think is important. It doesn't have to be only the stuff we're talking about. Kendra.
Oh, okay.
All right. Yeah, Nasir, you're ready to move on. Shair and Kendra, I assume you two are ready to move on?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm ready to move on.
All right, let's do B then. All right. So B, this is Boston King, who is a fugitive slave in the British Army, which means he ran away from slavery and joined the British Army. And here's what he has to say. When I was 16 years old, I was bound apprentice to a trade. After being in the shop for 2 years, I had the charge of my master's tools. One time in the holy days, the house was broke open and robbed of many valuable articles through negligence of the apprentice who had the charge of it. When I came home in the evening and saw what had happened, my consternation was inconceivable, as all that we had in the world could not make good the loss. The week following, the master came to town. I was beat in the most unmerciful manner, so that I was not able to do anything for a fortnight. About 8 months after, we were employed in building a storehouse, and nails were very dear at the time, it being in the American War, so the workmen had their nails weighed out to them. It being my lot one day to take care of them, which I did till an apprentice returned to his work, and then I went to dine. In the meantime, he took away all the nails belonging to one of the journeymen, and he, being of violent temper, accused me to the master with stealing of them. For this offense, I was beat and tortured most cruelly, and I was laid up for 3 weeks before I was able to do any work. My proprietor, hearing of the bad uses I received, came to town and severely reprimanded my master for beating me in such a manner, threatening him that if he ever heard the like again, he would take me away and put me to another master to finish my time and make him pay for it. To escape his cruelty, I determined to go to Charlestown and throw myself into the hands of the English. They received me readily, and I began to feel the happiness of liberty, of which I knew nothing before. Although I was much grieved at first to be obliged to leave my friends and reside among strangers, in this situation I was seized with the smallpox and suffered great hardships, for all the blacks affected with that disease were ordered to be carried a mile from camp, lest the soldiers should be affected and disabled from marching. This was a grievous circumstance to me and many others. We lay sometimes a whole day without anything to eat or drink, but Providence sent a man who belonged to the York Volunteers, whom I was acquainted with, to my relief. He brought me such things as I stood in need of, and by the blessings of the Lord I began to recover. In 1783, the horrors and devastation of the war terminated, and peace was restored between America and Great Britain, which diffused universal joy among all parties except us, who had escaped from slavery and taken refuge in the English army. For a report prevailed at New York that all the slaves, in the number 2,000, were being delivered up to their masters, although some of them had been 3 or 4 years among the English. This dreadful rumor filled us all with inexpressible anguish and terror, especially when we saw our old masters coming from Virginia, North Carolina, and other parts, and seizing upon their slaves in the streets of New York, or even dragging them out of their beds. Many of the slaves had very cruel masters, so the thoughts of returning home with them embittered life to us. For some days we lost our appetite for food, and sleep departed from our eyes. The English had compassion upon us in the day of distress, and issued a proclamation importing that all slaves should be free, who had taken refuge in British lines, and claimed the sanction and privileges of the proclamation respecting the security and protection of Negroes. In the consequence of this, each of us received a certificate from the commanding officer in New York, which dispelled all our fears and filled us with joy and gratitude. All right, one more time, this experience of Boston King, who was a fugitive slave in the British Army. When 16 years old, I was bound apprentice to a trade. After being in the shop for about 2 years, I had the charge of my master's tools. One time in the holy days, the house had been broken open and robbed of many valuable articles through the negligence of the apprentice who had the charge of it. When I came home in the evening and saw what had happened, my consternation was inconceivable. As we all had in the world could not make good the loss. The week following, when the master came to town, I was beat in the most unmerciful manner so that I was not able to do anything for a fortnight. About 6 months after, we were employed in building a storehouse, and the nails were very dear at the time, it being in the American War, so the workmen had their nails weighed out to them. It being my lot one day to take care of them, which I did until an apprentice returned to his work, and then I went to dine. In the meantime, he took away all the nails belonging to one of the journeymen, and he, being of a very violent temper, accused me to the master of stealing them. For this offense, I was beat and tortured most cruelly and was laid up for 3 weeks before I was able to do any work. My proprietor, having heard of the bad usage I received, came to town and severely reprimanded my master for beating me in such a manner, threatening him that if he ever heard the like again, he would take me away and put me to another master to finish my time and make him pay for it. To escape his cruelty, I determined to go to Charlestown and throw myself into the hands of the English. They received me readily, and I began to feel the happiness of liberty, which I knew nothing before. Although I was much aggrieved at first, I was to be obliged to leave my friends and to reside among strangers. In this situation, I was seized with the smallpox and suffered great hardships, for all the blacks affected with the disease were ordered to be carried a mile from the camp, lest the soldiers be infected and disabled from marching. This was a grievous circumstance to me and many others. We lay sometimes a whole day without anything to eat or drink, but Providence sent a man who belonged to the York Volunteers, whom I was acquainted with, to my relief. He brought me such things as I stood in need of, and the blessing of the Lord I began to recover. The horrors and devastation of war happily terminated, and peace was restored between America and Great Britain, which diffused universal joy among all parties except us, who had escaped from slavery and taken refuge in the English army. For a report prevailed at New York that all slaves, in the number 2,000, were being delivered up to their masters. Although some of them had been 3 or 4 years among the English, this dreadful rumor filled us with an inexpressible anguish and terror, especially when we saw our old masters coming from Virginia, North Carolina, and other parts, and seizing upon their slaves in the streets of New York, or even dragging them out of their beds. Many of the slaves had very cruel masters, so the thoughts of returning home with them embittered life to us. For some days we lost our appetite for food, and sleep departed from our eyes. The English had compassion upon us in the day of distress, and issued a proclamation importing that all slaves should be free who had taken in refuge in British lines, and claimed the sanction and privileges of the proclamations respecting the security and protection of Negroes. In the consequence of this, each of us received a certificate from the commanding officer at New York, which dispelled all of our fears and filled us with joy and gratitude. All right, what's going on with this guy? How was he treated when he was a slave? Was he treated good or treated bad?
He was treated bad. He got beat so bad to the point that he couldn't work for 3 weeks.
Yeah. And he was constantly being blamed for things that were what?
Not him.
Not him, yep. That these white people were messing up, and who got to take the blame?
Him?
Him. Okay. So what did he end up doing to try to get away from this? He ran away to where?
He ran away to Charleston or Charles something.
Charleston. We would call it Charleston today. Yep. That's exactly right. And to join what? Who did he join up with?
The British, I think.
Mm-hmm, with the British. Yep. And when the war ended, what did the British do? Did they send him back to slavery? No, they let him stay free, and they actually protected him from people who would want him and his friends, his colleagues, his fellow escaped slaves. They protected them to make sure that the Americans couldn't come and take them back. Does this document make Americans look good?
No.
No, not at all. Like, I mean, this guy's story, the first story, the story of Brinch here, he, it's sad that he was a slave, but he fought for liberty, and he got his freedom at the end, and then he was able to work and live as a free man. Is there any stories of him getting, beat up or punished or anything in this story?
Yeah.
Does he talk about getting beat up?
Who?
The first guy, Brinch.
Oh, no.
No, he doesn't, right? So, the white Americans don't look horrible in this one, but do they look good, bad, indifferent here?
Yes.
They look big.
They look bad, right?
Yeah.
They look real freaking bad here, right? This guy's getting beat up for nothing that he did. He's all these white people are blaming them for their screw ups. He's getting beaten to the point he can't move for 3 weeks. Okay, and when he runs away to the British, right? Is that all good or all bad?
All bad.
It's not all bad.
It's not all bad. It's in the middle.
It's in the middle, right? So he gets his freedom, right? But what happens to him?
He gets sick with the smallpox.
Yeah, and the British don't care that much about him, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're kind of go over there. I don't want anything to do with you. You might make us sick, right? And there's this one nice white dude who's I'll help you. But most other white people are what?
Forget you.
Forget you, yeah. So even though he got his freedom being with the British, it's still not 100% a great thing. But he's still happy, right? That he's what?
Free.
Free, right? In consequence of this, each of us received a certificate from the commanding officer in New York, dispelling all of our fears and filled us with joy and gratitude. All right, that he's not going to have to go back to these horrible parts of slavery. So what parts of this do we want to highlight? What parts of this do we want to highlight? And hello, Isabella. It's nice to see you. I've got you marked down as present, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yep. All right. So if people want to put quotes in the chat that they think are the most important ones that they're highlighting on their sheet, or you want to share out, now's the time, folks. Come on. Let's hear this. I know you can do it. Let's do it.
It's checkpoint 5, right?
This is checkpoint 5 for this class. Yep.
Okay.
It's the last checkpoint.
Wait, after that, no more?
Nope. We're just doing the final product.
Okay.
We
next
could
2
highlight
weeks.
the part where he was talking about how he got beat.
Yep, that's a good one. Which one? The really bad one or the first one? Or both?
Oh, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, highlight both. Yeah.
The part where he was talking about what's that word? Proprietor.
Proprietor? Yep.
Um.
That's the guy who ran the shop that he was working in.
Or that part where he was talking about hair out of bed usage I've received
Mm-hmm.
in the town and severely reprimanded my master for beating me in such a manner.
Awesome. That's a perfect thing to highlight. All right. Well, Tamai, if you were highlighting while you read this time, what did you highlight? Give us a quote. Copy and paste a quote in there, Tamai. Come on. I know you can do it. All right. So how about other folks? Speller, Jenkins, Wilk, Alston. Okay, Tamai, I believe you. All right. Huff, folks. People want to put some quotes in there. Really good job, Kendra and Shair. All right. So Nasir, what we want to highlight is the most important parts. What do you think is the most important parts of this story? Because we're trying to answer the question, how were enslaved African Americans affected by the American Revolution? Okay. So what are the most important parts of this guy's story? All right. So far people have said we want to show the examples of him getting abused by these horrible white Americans. Totally right. Right. There's where he kept getting blamed for this thievery and stuff getting stolen that he had nothing to do with. All right. And he's forced to take the blame for all these evil white people and what they're doing. And then he runs away to the British, gets sick. Okay. But he's still free and the British protect them. Even though the war ends, the British still protect all of the people who ran away to join them. Okay? So we want to be highlighting the most important parts, the parts that we think are the most important for this story. Okay? All right. Does that make sense to everybody? Oh, Alston left. Okay. All right. Does that make sense to people?
Rogers, where did the part start at where you said that he got beat twice? I filled the first one.
All right. So the first one is where they break open to the house, right?
Yeah.
And the second one is, it being my lot one day to take care of them, which I did until an apprentice returned to work, and then I went to dine. In the meantime, he took away all the nails belonging to one of the journeymen, and he being a very violent temper, accused me to the master of stealing them. For this offense, I was beat and tortured most cruelly and laid up for 3 weeks before I was able to do work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
That's the bad shit. Pardon my French. Yeah. Cool. All right. I really appreciate Shair, Kendra. All right. Wilkerson in the chat. Tamai in the chat. Isabella. All participating. I appreciate that, folks. All right. So are we ready to move on to the third document, or do people need more time to be highlighting this one? People need more time to be highlighting this one. There we go. All right. Do people need more time to be highlighting this one? What do we say? Need more time? No problem. No more problem. No problem. We got plenty of time. Okay. So if folks still need more time, you good, Wilk? Okay, we can go ahead. Cool. All right, awesome. All righty. So let's go to document C. Now, this is different than the previous documents that we talked about. All right, because this document is not written by Black people themselves. So the first two documents that we read, one was the story of an enslaved person who fought for the American side, and then the second document is somebody who was with the British. But both were by Black people. They were the first person perspective of what it meant to be a Black person at that time. This, on the other hand, this is a declaration by the Virginia colony regarding slavery. All right. This is written by white people in Virginia in the government. All right. Saying that how they responded to what was going on with slavery. All right. And the British. Okay. So here's what they said.
Supporting it.
What?
Were they supporting it?
Well, we're going to see in a second.
Oh,
All
I'm
right.
not reading this.
All right. So this is document C, declaration by the Virginia colony regarding slavery. By the representatives of the people of the colony and dominion of Virginia assembled in general convention and declaration. Whereas Lord Dunmore, by his proclamation dated aboard the ship William off Norfolk, the 7th day of November 1775, half offered freedom to such able-bodied slaves that were willing to join him and take up arms against the good people of this colony, hereby giving encouragement to a general insurrection, which may be induced by a necessity of inflicting the severest punishments upon those unhappy people already deluded by his base and insidious arts. And whereas by an act of the General Assembly now enforced in this colony is enacted, that no Negro or other slaves conspiring to rebel or make insurrection shall suffer death and be excluded for the benefit of clergy. We think it is proper to declare that all slaves who have been or shall be seduced by his lordship's proclamation or other arts to desert their master's service and take up arms against the inhabitants of this colony shall be liable to such punishments as hereto been directed by the General Convention. And to that end, all such who have taken this unlawful and wicked step may return in safety to their duty and escape the punishment due to their crimes. We hereby promise to pardon them, they surrendering themselves to Colonel William Woodford or any other commander of our troops, and not appearing in arms after the publication hereof. And we do further earnestly recommend it to all humane and benevolent persons in this colony to explain and make known that this is our offer of mercy to these unfortunate people. And this was signed by Edmund Pendleton, the president. So what are they saying here? There was the leader of the British in Virginia at that time was this guy, Lord Dunmore, and he issued what is called Lord Dunmore's Proclamation, which offered freedom to enslaved people who ran away and joined the British, to either help the British or, if you were a man, to fight for the British. And if you watched the interview that I did with Dr. Michael Haddam, we talked about this. It's called Dunmore's Proclamation. We talked about it, how important it was to scare white people. All right, because it really, as you can see here, white people were really scared by this idea of black people running away and getting their freedom from the British and coming back to fight for their freedom. Okay, so we got a message here. Oh, hey, Jazz. I am marking you here, Jazz. Okay, nice to see you. All right, we're working on checkpoint 5 right now, the last checkpoint in this class. Okay. All right. So what's going on here is this is the reaction of white people to what's going on. All right. And there's two things that they're saying here. On one hand, they say that if people do run away to get their freedom, they'll be executed if they get caught. And on the other hand, if you do run away, but you decide to come back, they'll pardon you. So they're trying to scare people, but also offer people who have second thoughts about what happened to come back. Okay? So on one hand, they're trying to be really harsh. On the other hand, they're trying to pretend that they're not being harsh. So they've got this whole like pull and pull because they're really scared that people are going to take the British up on their offer. They're afraid that enslaved people are going to be like, look, F this noise. Like this is my chance to be free. As we saw with Boston up here, with Boston King. All right, with what's going on with King over here, he ran away to the British and he got his freedom. And they're afraid that more people are going to do the kind of things that Boston did, to run away and get their freedom with the British and come back and fight white Americans. So they're scared. And this is how they're trying to react. They're saying, on one hand, if you run away, we'll kill you if we catch you. But if you turn yourself in, we will spare you. So they're trying to be, one hand, really harsh, on the other hand, try to pretend that they're being merciful. All right? Does that make sense to folks? Can you hear me now? Can folks hear me?
That makes sense.
Okay. So is it just Isabella that can't hear me?
Wait, I fixed it. It's fine.
Okay. Cool. I just wanted to make sure. All right. So that makes sense. So what are some important quotes here?
I didn't quote nothing.
You didn't quote nothing? You don't think there's anything important that says like
No, because I don't care.
you don't care? Okay.
Like this is not anything I need to know.
Okay. Anybody got anything here? Because I think what is important to know here. Oh, go ahead, Kendra.
Oh, well, I didn't even know my speaker was on. Anyways, it's important. It's good that they're not gonna, kill the people if they come back.
Yeah, that could be good. Spoiler alert, people don't take them up on that offer, right? Because who's going to go back to slavery, right? But I think what it's important to understand about this is that it shows how scared white people in Virginia were. Okay? They were scared.
It seemed like
they were scared. They was all scared.
Yeah, right? And
not just white people in Virginia, all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they all were. All right. But they're saying the quiet part loud. You know what I mean, Shahir? All right. So it's showing that there's a lot of that the way that slavery was getting disrupted by what was going on, and they were afraid that that system could collapse and that they would have to suffer for the things that they did. Again, let's go back up to Boston's story, that they would have to figure out that they'd have to suffer for all the bad treatment that they gave people, like what happened to Boston. All right, and this is their reaction. Okay, so folks, highlight what you think is important in this one. All right. And if folks don't think there's anything important in there, that's okay. All right. All right. But we want to make sure you highlight the important stuff that you think you find in here. Okay.
So are they gonna make up for yesterday work that we missed?
It's just basically so Isabella, it's just basically like a day that didn't exist. Okay. So you don't need to make up anything. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So don't worry about it. All right. Folks ready for document D? All right. Get to Phyllis Wheatley here. Phyllis Wheatley, again, is great. All right. She was one of the first published Black people in America, first published Black African Americans, first published Black woman. All right. And she's a poet. All right. This is from her poem on tyranny and slavery from 1773. No more America, in mournful strain, of wrongs and grievances unredressed complain. No longer shall you dread the iron chain, which wanton tyranny with lawless hand had made, and with it meant to enslave the land. Should you, my lord, while you peruse my song, wonder from whence my love of freedom sprung, whence flow these wishes for the common good, by feeling hearts alone best understood. I, young in life, by seeming cruel fate, was snatched from Africa's fancied happy seat. What pangs excruciating must molest, what sorrows labor in my parents' breast. Steeled was the soul, and by no misery moved, that from a father seized his babe beloved. Such my case, and can I then but pray, others may never feel tyrannic sway. All right, one more time. No more America in mournful strain, of wrongs and grievances unredressed complain. No longer shall thou dread the iron chain, which wanton tyranny with lawless hand had made, and with it meant to enslave the land. Should you, my lord, while you peruse my song, wonder whence my love of freedom sprung, whence flow these wishes for the common good, but feeling hearts alone best understood. I, young in life, by seeming cruel fate, was snatched from Africa fancied happy seat, which pangs excruciating much molest, what sorrows labor in my parents' breast. Steeled was the soul, and by no misery moved, that from a father seized his babe beloved. Such my case, and can I then but pray, others may never feel tyrannic sway. Okay. So what do you think is the point of Phyllis's poem? What do you think is the point of Phyllis's poem here? What is she trying to say? What's going on with her poem? What is she describing?
Is she describing slavery?
She is describing slavery. Yep. Particularly that second part, right? The bottom part. Yeah. She's saying that, look, she was stolen from Africa, stolen from her parents, right? And it was a bad, that only a bad person could do that, right? Steeled was the soul, and by no misery moved, right? That somebody was willing to do that. They couldn't have feelings, right? And it's describing how horrible it is that slavery is, right? That she was snatched from Africa, where she was happy with her family, all right? And it broke her parents' heart that she was stolen, right? So she's pointing out how horrible slavery is, okay? But let's look at the top part here. No more America in mournful strain of wrongs and grievances unredressed complain. No longer shall thou dread the iron chain which wanton tyranny with lawless hand had made with it meant to enslave the land. Who is she talking about here? She's talking about, is she talking about black people? Is she talking to white people here? Who do you think she could be talking to in this first part before she describes slavery?
White people.
Mm-hmm. And white people are complaining all about what? How bad they're what? Again, she's saying no more American mournful strain of wrongs and grievances unredressed complain. Right? She's saying that Americans are what? Are they saying, oh, everything's great? Or are they saying that everything sucks?
She's saying that everything is bad.
Well, she's saying that's what white people are saying. But do they actually have it bad, according to what she's saying?
Oh, no.
No. That's what she's calling people hypocrites, right? Because you've got all these white people who are talking about how they're getting mistreated. They're getting, the tyranny is coming down from the British. They're getting mistreated. But who is actually being mistreated? Is it white people?
No, it's black people. They're slaves.
Yes, it's actually slaves who are getting mistreated. She's saying, like, look, you're complaining about the British mistreating you and how tyrannical they are.
White people problem. They always want to play victim.
Yes, and this goes all the way back to 1773. Yes.
Like, no, there's nothing wrong with y'all. Y'all just got cold blood. Period. Simple. Y'all just not nice people. Leave it at that.
And she's calling them on their hypocrisy. It's like, you are complaining about being treated like slaves while you are enslaving people. You stole Phyllis from her family in Africa, and now you're sitting here complaining about being mistreated?
Just said, really.
Okay. So so Phyllis says, look, I don't want anybody to be mistreated, right? She's saying, I don't like slavery, right? Says such my case, and I can then pray others may never feel the tyrannic sway. All right. So she's all saying, like, look, this is all of this is bad. How you're being treated is bad. How I'm being treated is bad. But you're a hypocrite for pointing out that there's all this tyranny that's going on to you while you're doing all of this to African people and to African Americans. Okay. So Phyllis is calling the white people of her time hypocrites for their whining about slavery, about being mistreated, that they're getting enslaved, when they're actually, what they're really doing is being tyrannical to Africans and African Americans. And that they're ignoring all the good feelings that people are supposed to have towards other human beings by going out and snatching away people's children, stealing people's family members. Okay? All right. So folks got this? You got stuff highlighted? What did people highlight from Phyllis's poem? I think her poem is super cool. Again, she's a super interesting woman. She was, again, like one of the first published black people in America, and was the first published black woman. She's a poet. Yep. You highlighted that she was snatched. Good. Yep. Exactly. To my good. All right. She's a really interesting woman. All right, folks. So if we got this, I can move on and show you what you need to do for the checkpoint. But does everybody got this highlighted? The most important parts. Let me know in the chat. People good? Let me know if people are good. All right, Kendra's good. What about other folks? I don't want to just move on. But folks need more time? Cool, cool. All right, I'm going to wait five more minutes. All right, and then we will move on and I'll explain the next thing, okay? I'll give people a little bit more time. Make sure you highlight all this stuff, okay? All this stuff. Make sure you've highlighted the most important parts. All right. All right, 2 more minutes, folks. 2 more minutes. Okay. All right, so 1 more minute. All right. So what we need to do for the checkpoint is I want you all to move over here back to the Founding of America DBQ. and I want you to click Women During the American Revolution document set. Okay? Women During the American Revolution document set. It should open up this right here. All right? This right here. All right? And this is letters and images about what it was like to be a woman, particularly a white woman, during the American Revolution. Okay? All right. This, you're going to be doing this by yourself. You're going to be doing what we just did, which is, as a whole class, which is reading the documents or looking at the pictures and then highlighting the parts that you think are the most important and you think are the most informative. Okay? And when you're done with that, you want to paste it in here. Okay? All right? Okay? You want to paste it in here when you're done into checkpoint 5. So you want to go through here, say what's going on in each one of these, contextualize it, all right? Okay, right here. All right. And then you want to paste it in here. All right. That's what you need to do for this one. And this is our last checkpoint. This is our last checkpoint for this class. We are almost done. We've got this and then the final essay, and we will be done. So this is the last checkpoint that you need to do for this class. We're almost done. We've only got 2 more weeks after this. Holy All right. We're almost to summer break, all right, which is most of June and the beginning of July. Super exciting.
So do we have to write where the pictures is?
Yeah, you would write next to the pictures.
Okay.
Okay, good question. Okay. All right. This is not hard. Like, you just need to make sure you highlight it and all right, and say what's going on. All right. That's the whole point of what we're doing here. Okay. This is the easiest checkpoint. All right. The easiest checkpoint in this class. Does everybody understand what's going on with that? All right. And does anyone have any questions? Okay. All right. So I just want to go over again what you need to do for the progress report. So the progress report's due Friday. I'll send an email out later today to remind you. Okay. But the progress report requires that you do checkpoint 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. Checkpoints 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you want to get all green in my class and get that $10 from Mr. Gary, that's what you need to be doing. Okay? That's what you need to be doing. All right? And I want you to get those $10. All right? And if you've got questions, you can ask them now, or you can message me or email me, and I will talk to you anytime between 1 and 3 this week. Okay? I'll be available. All right? Cool. All right, I'm going to end the call, and I'll take any individual, not end the call, but I'm going to end the recording, and I'll take any individual questions that folks have for me. All right.